Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It's a live edition, a Thursday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the International Diamond Center Studios. Fine jewelry, watches, and much more. Family owned and operated with the largest selection of natural diamond jewelry. Today's program will have Brent Beaird, college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, and we'll have Mike Morgan from the SEC Network. We'll talk with Mike a lot about SEC basketball. Big win for the Gators last night in Tuscaloosa. That definitely puts them back in the hunt for a number one seed. Beat Ole Miss, win a couple of games or whatever you do there. But with Tennessee losing, because they had Tennessee on the one line going into the game last night against Ole Miss, they go down. So, yeah, I think right now Florida has a very good chance to be a one seed now. Let's go to the Titan Tomorrow Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Tent. We're joined by our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How you doing?
Shane, good morning. I'm frankly not sure Florida may not be the best team in the nation. I know Auburn would have an argument for that probably, and so would Duke and Houston, but they just are maybe the most complete team that's playing right now. And amazingly, we're a week away from the SEC tournament. The women are having their tournament this week, and the SEC next week from Nashville. That begins on Wednesday, so certainly that to look forward to, and basically an SEC or ACC team starting spring practice almost every day now.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Brent. Yeah, basketball is heating up, and boy, I mean, I don't think Florida could have played any better last night, and it was a tremendous win. Let's talk a little college football. Gators crank up with spring practice today, but before we jump into team by team, there are 7 non-conference games involving the Southeastern Conference that are pretty good ball games this year.
Yeah, they really are. Virginia Tech and South Carolina, that'll be called the Beamer Bowl ad nauseum before that one's over. Alabama at Florida State, but people may have forgotten this, but this will be Florida State's opener in their newly refurbished stadium, let's say. Michigan at Oklahoma. Now, this is interesting with this, too, and I give Saturday Down South credit for this, is legendary as both these teams are, Shane. They've only played one time. So that is unusual, is it not? A&M and Notre Dame play at Notre Dame. So a lot of these are early in September games, if not Labor Day. Florida at Miami certainly is early on the list. LSU at Clemson, another big opener for LSU. And then the two teams who kind of we saw, shall we say, toward the end of the season, start the season, Texas at Ohio State. That's a pretty good group of 7 games, isn't it, Shane?
Yeah, there's no question about that. Big name schools should be fun to watch those, no doubt about it. Brent, what's the latest on Florida State and Clemson with the ACC?
Yeah, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version of this. Clemson and Florida State are dropping their lawsuits over the grant of rights agreement. The ACC would change its revenue model and give a significant portion of their media dollars to schools based on television ratings. And this is something Florida State's been looking for quite a while. And the total cost to get out of the conference is going to plunge to only $75 million in the early 2030s. So look, basically this is kumbaya for the conference. We're all together for now, but in 5 years, this could be drastically different. And look, to get out of the conference, I mean, we didn't really ever have a precise figure, but I mean, it was anywhere from 500 million to 250 million, or depending on what you read. But to be able to exit with 75 million, I mean, that's still a chunk of change, but it's a whole lot less than what it was originally.
Yeah. What's the latest on all the recruiting, the dead periods, and things of that nature, Brent?
Yeah, we try to update folks of this. The NCAA mandated a dead period that was lifted earlier this week. This clears the way for schools to resume hosting unofficial visitors. There's a quiet period that's in place beginning today and going through April 14th. There can be no off-campus recruiting until the contact period opens up on April 15th through May the 24th. During those 5 weeks, off-campus recruiters can visit schools, go to practices, and attend spring games at various high schools. So that gives you a little bit of indication of where we are. And with spring practice starting, it's good, frankly, to have a quiet time in recruiting to where it's limited.
Yeah. Speaking of spring games, Liberty's already had their spring game.
Listen, Shane, that's amazing, isn't it? Man, that's when you are really trying to get it out of the way. But yeah, Liberty actually had their spring game last Saturday. Probably, I don't know if it was, but there's probably some snow in that area somewhere, wouldn't it, Shane?
Yeah, there's no question about that. The Pouncey twins, Mike and Marquise, invite you to try the mango martinis at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, handcrafted with their J.F. Hayden liqueurs. Try those flavors and find your favorite at shopjfhaydens.com. We got Brent Beaird here, a college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter. We'll talk more hoops with our man, Mike Morgan from the SEC Network in the second portion of today's program. All right, Brent, what's going on in Alabama?
Well, they started spring practice on Monday, and they've got several guys who are out because of injuries, as everyone else does. Caden Proctor, the offensive lineman, being one of those. He's in a no-contact jersey. So is James Smith and Justin Jefferson. Fifth-year defensive back Deshaun Jones was working with some of the safeties. These are some new names people may heard and not heard. Keelan Russell is their super freshman quarterback, who is there for the spring, and that really works out well for some of these guys. 3 quarterbacks in Alabama: Ty Simpson, who people think will be the guy; Austin Mack, who is 6'6", who came from Miami; and then Keelan Russell, as we just mentioned. By the way, happy birthday to Gene Stallings, a former Alabama coach. I know, Shane, you remember him because you played against him. He turned 90. Can you believe that? Over last weekend, Gene Stallings, 90 years old. So, but at this point, Bama's on the field, and they're in helmets and shells and all that. So I'm sure they'll probably get into some pads a little bit later on the next few days.
Yeah. What's going on in Arkansas?
Well, we hadn't talked about them a whole lot. They start spring practice on Monday. They've got a difficult schedule. Non-conference games, against Notre Dame and at Memphis and Arkansas State. So that's certainly not easy for them. Last year they were 3-1 in non-con games, so that will be it. They're trying to find a running back. Jaquindon Jackson, who really was a pretty good running back when he was healthy, went to the NFL. So they are trying to find one. Rodney Hill started the Liberty Bowl, so they think he may be a possibility. sophomore Braylon Russell. So they would be trying to find that out, hoping the offensive line would be better. I mean, that's kind of what Sam Pittman does. That's his specialty with that. But they think they've got some pretty good ones. They've added Georgia Tech left tackle Corey Robinson. So we'll see where that goes, and hopefully Sam Pittman can have a better year and kind of get above that 500 mark.
Yeah, for sure. Auburn got some kind of sad news from Hugh Freeze, but it looks like they detected the cancer early.
They found prostate cancer in Hugh Freeze, but they are confident that they have done a good job to catch it early, and that is the way to do. I've had two friends who've had prostate cancer, and they've had the radioactive seeds, thankfully. Thank God that they're both fine, but early detection is the key there. But this is a key season on the field for Hugh Freeze in many ways. They need to be better. They were 6-7 his first year, 5-7 last year. They think they'll be better at quarterback. We will see. With Jackson Arnold coming over from Oklahoma, they did get Eric Singleton, who was a really good wide receiver from Georgia Tech. So they are hoping for better things. Shane, they start the season at Baylor. Baylor really came on and had and won like their last half dozen games last year. So will be a very pivotal year for Hugh Freeze at Auburn.
Yeah, they brought in Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma, and let's be honest, the quarterback play at Auburn the last few years has been just horrific.
Yes.
So there's a lot of pressure on that kid. He was highly recruited going to Oklahoma, had some ups and downs there, but he will be the key to Auburn's season, in my opinion.
Yes.
The Gators crank up today. They'll run out of the locker room today with their helmets on for the first time. Year 4 for Billy Napier.
Yeah, excited to see that. They open Thursday. They will practice every Saturday, Tuesday, and Thursday through the month. They've got a spring break. When is that? March 16th through the 22nd. So got a scrimmage on Saturday, March the 29th. And after practicing Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, then they've got the spring game coming up. I'm not quite exactly sure what they're going to do for the spring, but I'm just glad they are having the game. They've added former Gator starting linebacker David Reese the second to the support staff as a quality control coach. We know about Bubba Spurrier joining the group too, so certainly a lot of excitement for Gator spring football. It's going to be very interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, the Dogs crank up as well here pretty soon. I didn't realize they lose 17 starters off last year's roster.
Yeah, sure did. Yeah,
Wow.
And Kirby really thought the whole year about they really did not have the depth that they needed. Their spring game will be April the 12th. Not a whole lot of information on that right now. They start next Tuesday. If you're a Georgia fan listening, that is when spring starts. As Shane said, they're going to have to replace 17 starters. Maybe they have. Shane, I don't remember Georgia having to replace that many. Do you?
I don't.
In a while. So, and look, it's not that like they don't have players. Gunnar Stockton and Nate Frazier at running back and quarterback. Dylan Bell at wide receiver. Oscar Delp comes back. Lawson Lucky, another tight end, returns. Ernest Green at offensive tackle. Christian Miller at defensive tackle. I won't go into all of them, but they still return a pretty good core of players.
Yes, they do. The Kentucky Wildcats, Stoops has been there forever.
Yes.
I don't know if he plans to stay there or what, but they're going to start spring ball next week, I believe.
Yes.
Haven't heard a whole lot about Kentucky this all season.
No. And listen, of all the SEC teams, I'm not sure that Kentucky hasn't been the quietest to this point. Now they've got their schedule again. They will host Texas, Tennessee, Ole Miss at home. They also have got Florida. They would travel to South Carolina, Louisville, and Auburn. So still a lot to be done at Kentucky. And you're right. Mark Stoops is the dean of SEC coaches, frankly, by far. I mean, he and Kirby are up there at this point. So with the revolving door at head coach, but Mark Stoops is still there. There was a lot of speculation, Shane, that Stoops would not get fired, but that he would just retire. But that is obviously not the case. So hopefully he's rejuvenated and coming back. But I think that's certainly something to watch, right?
Yeah, for sure. What's going on in Baton Rouge?
Frankly, a lot. They've had more stuff going on than about anybody. Bo Davis, a name we mentioned here on this segment many times because he's probably the best defensive line coach in the nation, has left LSU and gone to the Saints. He didn't have to go for it, did he, Shane?
Nope.
So
nope.
I guess wherever he was living in Baton Rouge, he probably gets to keep it for a while. But look, he's been at Alabama, Texas, and LSU, so they were looking for someone to replace him. Not quite sure at this point who that is going to be. Southern Cal's Eric Henderson has been mentioned. Missouri defensive line coach Al Davis, nothing affirmative on that. LSU gets started on Saturday, as a matter of fact. So this is, I think, a key off season for LSU. They need to get beyond kind of where they've been, around 8-4-ish, something like that. So that's going to be very important for them. So they did get a lot of folks. They had the number one transfer class, Nick Anderson, the wide receiver from Oklahoma, Florida State edge rusher Patrick Payton, Northwestern offensive lineman Josh Thompson are some of the guys who were there. They've also added Florida State offensive coordinator Alex Atkins, former Miami D coordinator Lance Guidry is going to be there too. But again, Garrett Nussmeier comes back. Shane and I both think Garrett is one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC.
Yeah, he's very good. The Missouri Tigers, obviously I have not looked at their schedule. It seems like the last couple of years it's been somewhat easy from an SEC standpoint. But they're going into this spring, Brent, all their big name guys are now gone.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how the Tigers perform without their so-called star players. And obviously they may have some better players or some good players on their roster, but there's going to be some names that we're not familiar with at Missouri.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And they're losing Brady Cook and wide receivers Luther Burden and Theo Weiss. Those guys are really good. They'll be in the NFL for a while. I think Cook is an underrated quarterback, frankly, and think he'll do okay. Their quarterback in Missouri this year is going to be Bo Pribolu, who is at Penn State, if people are familiar with that name. The quarterback room is Drew Pine and Sam Horn. They've got a signee, Matt Zollers, so that would be interesting to see how the quarterback competition is going to be. But I do believe the Penn State quarterback will probably be the guy. Not sure if Drinkwith will name a starter yet. We will see with that. But they've already started. They actually started last Friday to kind of get things going. So it will be as Shane said, it will be an interesting year at Missouri after losing a lot of really good players.
Yeah, Andy's question for you, Brent, on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mental Law, says, are you surprised with any of the new members of the college football selection committee?
Not really. That's a good question. what's interesting with the meetings of the commissioners is what they're going to be doing is they're going to be selecting the teams. We think that's what they're going to do. They have this big to-do on Tuesday starting in November about ranking the teams. And then after they rank the teams, they didn't even really use their rankings at the end very accurately. So what we think is going to change is they're probably going to rank the teams or seed the teams according to their rankings, which what we've heard is will mean the committee will have less to do than it does now. And back to the question, Shane, I've always thought that they should have more football people on that committee, meaning coaches, etc. I mean, they've got ADs on the committee, but those guys have got so much to do. But so it wouldn't hurt my feelings at all if they added a few more football coaches on that committee. I think that would kind of round it out a little better.
Yeah, the Oklahoma Sooners, they start practice, I think, today as well.
They do.
Huge year, I believe, for Brent Venables. Obviously, things have not gone as well as they had hoped, but I do like this move, Brent. Brent Venables made his name in college football because of him being the defensive coordinator, and he's going back to being the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, and their D coordinator, Zach Alley, left Oklahoma rather abruptly, and Venables considered about what he was going to do. And as Shane said, Venables is going to call the plays himself defensively. So, and I'm with you on that. That's his strength. That's what he does very well. Now, they've lost Danny Stutzman, who was an incredible linebacker. He had over 100 tackles every year. Safety Billy Bowman and Ethan Downs. I mean, they had a legit defense, one of the better ones. I think I've asked you this before, but their quarterback is John Mateer. He comes from Washington State, and I think you've been rather impressed with him before, haven't you?
Well, yeah, and again, we got to see how it translates to the Southeastern Conference. But the coordinator that he played for at Washington State is now the coordinator at OU, so he's very familiar with the system, and he's a really good player. I think Oklahoma has a chance to be much, much better. They were horrific on offense.
They were
last year, just absolutely terrible. What's going on with the Ole Miss Rebels?
Well, Ole Miss is going to be cranking it up pretty soon. They're hoping for another double-digit win season and to be able to get into the playoffs. They've got the number 2 transfer portal class, which won't surprise anybody at all. And I still think their biggest improvement has been on defense. That this is worth repeating, but defensively, Ole Miss ended the season last year allowing only 80 yards rushing per game, the best by an Ole Miss defense, Shane, since 1966. That's amazing, frankly. But isn't that an indication, though, of Lane's growth to a degree, Shane? That he has really paid attention to that defense getting better, and it has made a difference for them.
My dad was on that 1966 Ole Miss team.
Is that right?
He was.
How about that?
Yes, he was. What's going on with South Carolina?
Yeah, they will be cranking up soon. Lenore Sellers, defensive end Dylan Stewart. Those guys are among several that will be coming back. Now, Kyle Kennard, their rush in, and Rocket Sanders, they will not be. They think Rasul Faison may be their running back. Now, again, Mike Shula, the former Alabama coach, has been promoted to the offensive coordinator at South Carolina. And they've got a really good transfer, Brandon Sissy, I think that's how you pronounce that, at cornerback. So that will be interesting to see where that goes. I give 24/7 Sports credit for this. one of the things, and I'd be curious what you think about this, that one of the things they're going to do differently from last year is an increased use of design runs from Lenore Sellers and the running backs. I think what they want to do, obviously, with this is do something with their running game and try to beef that up, Shane. So we may see a little more running from Lenore Sellers this coming season.
Yeah, Barone has a question for me here on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Do you think it's easier for a defensive-oriented head coach to be the DC on game day, as opposed to an offensive-minded head coach being the OC, or do you feel it's the same? I don't think there's any difference. I will go to my grave saying I know people think that calling plays, you can't do the head coach and all that. I just totally disagree with it. I will always disagree with it because I've seen many people do it, and I just don't think it's that damn hard, personally. Brent, give us some nuggets before we get you out of here and we talk hoops with Mike Morgan.
Yeah, Tennessee starts tomorrow. One of their guys they were really excited about, Boo Carter at cornerback. I mean, he was good last year, but he needs to step up. They think that he will. Now, what's going to be interesting is who's going to play running back. Frankly, Dylan Sampson, one of the better runners in the SEC in the nation, will not be there. This is interesting. Texas, over the last few days, has hired former West Virginia coach Neil Brown to be on their staff. Not yet sure what he's going to be doing. The quarterback situation at Texas, number one is Arch Manning, Trey Owens, Joe Tatum. Some of those names folks may not be real familiar with. Quinn Ewers obviously is going to the NFL, so that we'll see how that goes. Texas A&M, we know Marcel Reed will be the starter, but their backup is Jacob Zeno, who is from UAB. So it'll be interesting to see how he does along that line too. So and Shane, Miami has started. We'll get into more of them next week when we have a little bit more time, but they started earlier this week, and it will be very fascinating to see. Obviously, Carson Beck has had surgery on his shoulder or his arm, and he will not be able to do much during the spring. So the Canes are on the field, and those will be soon too.
Yeah, good stuff as always, Brent. Appreciate your time. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next week, my man.
You too, bud. Take care. Thank you.
All right, that's Brent Beaird, our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, joining us on the Titan Tomorrow hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Quick timeout, come back. I know everybody's been chomping at the bit to talk about the game last night. We'll discuss it with Mike Morgan from the SEC Network. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the International Diamond Center Studios. Be right back.
Our premium sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union,
International Diamond Center,
Meldon Law, QC Kinetics, Dave & Buster's, UF Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute, JF Hayden Craft Liqueurs, Florida Cracker Kitchen, Los Linderos Tequila. Gridiron sponsors are Baker Sporting Goods, Comfort Temp, Electronics World, Florida Victorious, Gallo Car Wash, Miapa Latin Cafe, Peachland Dental, Quality Plumbing, Ruse Ogre State Farm, Silverback Concrete, 84 Lumber, Big Mills Cheesesteak, Celebrate Primary Care, Dowling Sign, Gator Bait Media, Gator Dominoes, Ironwood Golf Course, Okido America, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, UF Bookstores, Nest and Wow, MG&A Wealth Management. Watch and listen to us live on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. To become a sponsor, call my man Freddie at 352-284-3733.
Unleash the Inferno.
I'm tired of you living in pain, and I want you to get real lasting relief from chronic pain in your knees, back, shoulders, and hips. QC Kinetics can get you moving again with cutting-edge regenerative treatments with no drugs, no downtime, and no surgery. Stop putting it off. Call now and schedule your free consultation. Call QC Kinetics now in Gainesville, Ocala, and the Villages. 352-400-4550. 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the International Diamond Center Studios. There are many car washes in Gainesville, but only one Gallo Car Wash, locally owned by UF alum and the only car wash that provides NIL opportunities to Gator athletes, with locations on Northwest 13th Street and Southwest Wilson Road, and coming soon to Jonesville. Back to the Titan MR hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. It's the SEC Network's Mike Morgan. Good morning, Mike. How you doing, bud?
Shane, it's always a pleasure. I'm doing great. Good morning to PodUp Nation, one of the best audiences in the history of podcasts. And I say that, of course, for cheap applause. No, I mean it. I mean it. I'm sincere. I enjoy watching and listening to this show when I'm not on it, and I always enjoy being on it.
Yes, for sure. All right, let's start with this real quick. Chris, before I get to his question, what a win for the Gators last night.
Yeah, Shane, I was thinking about this. You know, my freshman year, my beat at WRUF was the 1994 Final Four team. And if you remember, when they beat Boston College to advance to the Final Four, the great Vern Lundquist had a very powerful call, and he said, as you watch the players, I think the clerk was giving like a piggyback to one of the players, might have been Craig Brown or Dan Cross, and they're going off the floor. And Lundquist astutely said, these players were not highly recruited. And he was right. Lon Kruger had a team of guys, many of whom were overlooked in the recruiting process and did not play like the amount of stars they had when they came to campus. I will continue to say that about this team. I think from the outside looking in, people that have no idea about this team, they just assume that like Todd Golden is this whiz recruiter and got a bunch of 4- or 5-star kids. That's not it. Alex Condon was going to St. Mary's because nobody else knew who the hell he was. He played at a Vegas showcase, and they stumbled upon him. Thomas Houck grew up in a small town near Amish country in Pennsylvania. Nobody knew who he was. Walter Clayton is a transfer from Iona who had more hype as a football guy than a basketball guy. Elijah Martin was a transfer from FAU that obviously was overlooked in the process. Now, he was a hot portal commodity, but not as hot as Janelle Davis, who went to Arkansas. This is a really special unit, how it came together and how they play. And when Houck and Condon are playing just balls to the wall, which is what you saw in that game last night, Alabama had no answer for them. They were the more aggressive duo down low. And I'm going to tell you a one play, Shane, that made Alex Condon money. There's a loose ball on the Alabama where they're going for a basket. It winds up in the hands of Clayton. Florida starts running, and you see on the bottom of your screen this lanky 6'11" guy streaking like a wide receiver on a go route, beating his defensive back competition, and then getting an alley-oop pass for a slam. NBA scouts have told me Alex Condon is rising up the boards. I don't know how long you're going to have that kid, but that was a special play. And to me, that was we know how good Florida's guards are. Houck and Condon completely dominated the paint. They were special last night.
Yeah, their athleticism and just they're not your natural, normal big men. But yeah, I agree. So Mike, I still catch grief from a lot of people because I've been saying for 2 months now, I feel like this is the best team Florida's ever had.
Yeah.
Again, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but just athletic wise and shooting, I will go to my grave saying that. Let me read this text on the Titan MR text line from Chris in Mayaca. He says, Mike, do you think us ranking outside the top 10 in quad one wins will hurt our chances of getting a 1 seed, even if we win out the rest of the season?
No. I mean, if you win the SEC tournament, you're a one. You got to be. Got to be. With Florida's resume, I think most people realize there's a tier system in the SEC, and this has changed. I didn't know Florida was this good when I had them back in December and even early January. But now, if you're paying attention, Florida and Auburn are two of the best teams in the country. I don't think there's any debate about that. I don't know anybody who would push back on that. I would say Florida, Auburn, and Duke are the top three teams in the country. But it's not based on that. It is based on resume, and Florida still has some work to do if they want a one. Florida could absolutely spit the bit and still get a two. And honestly, I don't think there's that big a difference between a one and a two. But yeah, if you went on to win the SEC tournament, and because if you did that, you're going to pick up some really impressive wins on the way to that streak, which would be 3 games because you're going to get the double bye. So yeah, I think there's still a chance at a one, but at worst it'll be a two.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. I pretty much thought we were locked in, signed, sealed, and delivered as a two. I didn't think there was anything we could do moving forward. I didn't think we'd win at Alabama, quite honestly. But now that we won and Tennessee lost, I think we're back in the hunt to be a number one not overall seed, but a number one seed. So what if we were to win the SEC tournament? Could that catapult us to the overall number one seed?
It's possible. One thing that I have a problem with the committee, unfortunately, they don't pay enough attention to the conference tournaments. Like in their mind, they've kind of already done their research and analyzed the numbers, and it's like they just ignore what happens in the tournament championship game. Well, if we're going to ignore it, then why are we even playing it? I don't like that, but unfortunately, that's been the case. I think Auburn. I don't think there's a chance Auburn loses it. Auburn's quad one record is historic. Like we've never seen. Obviously, we haven't had the quad system for 50 years. But if you just look at, the quality of teams they've beaten, how many big time wins they have, even though Florida clearly won the head to head, I think Auburn would have to just look awful in the final 2 games because you'd have to have them go one and out. In Nashville, but I think Auburn's going to be the overall number one, and then the question becomes: Can Florida get on that one line?
Andy's question on Facebook Live brought to you by Mellow. Mike, do you think Alex Condon's wearing a Gator jersey or NBA jersey next season?
This is a great question. I mean, this is what I was talking about at the beginning. The NBA scouts. I talked to a scout a month ago that said, I'm telling you right now, the guy that I'm looking at Florida is Alex Condon. And he is rising on draft boards. So now I don't know. I know a lot about his family because I've told the story on various television broadcasts, but I don't know what the finances are. I don't know how much Alex Condon loves school. All these things go into it that you just can't predict because Alex Condon, if he comes back, he's going to make a lot of money. With kids getting paid the way they are now. But if people start projecting him as a first-round draft pick, and I think you're going to start seeing some of that, then that's very tempting for a kid like that to go pro. So, I mean, I would say it's about 50-50 right now, and if he continues to climb up the boards, chances are he's going to leave.
Brian's question on Facebook Live brought to you by Mellow. Mike, are you now prepared to revise your earlier opinion that Florida's a second-tier team in the SEC earlier, or you had them behind Alabama and Tennessee? I think they've made their case. They're on the same level as Auburn or just a smidge behind them. And then he also says, who should be above UF now as a 1 seed after last night? Tennessee, please. I think people need to look at the whole body of work. I'm a huge Gator fan. We all love them, right, Mike? We think they're very good.
Mm-hmm.
But just because you beat a team here and you beat Auburn, you have to look at the body of work of what Auburn's done something that I don't think anybody in college basketball has ever done with all the quad one wins, correct?
Right. Yeah, it's historic. The season that they've had is historic. So it'd be very hard to leapfrog that. I can't remember. What was it? Brian? Is that what?
Yeah, Brian.
Brian's got a good memory. I don't think the last time I said anything like that was probably, I don't know, December, early January. I've had Florida as one of the top 3 teams in the country now for well over a month. So yes, like just about everybody, you revise your opinion on all these teams as it goes. But I think I might have had at the time, at like the very beginning, maybe Tennessee ahead of Florida. Florida's clearly a better team. Like I said, they're the best three teams in the country are Auburn, Florida, and Duke, in my opinion.
Yeah, Duke's an interesting team. I know a lot of people, they look at the ACC, and obviously it's nowhere near top to bottom like the SEC, but Duke is extremely talented. Correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't they the biggest or tallest team in all of America?
I'd have to look at that. It's a great Ken Palm stat. They're up there. They're big. And, of course, Flagg is a guy at his size, and he's still growing, by the way, that he'll be the number one pick in the draft. He's not only big, but he's uber athletic. He moves better than most big guys do, so he can play just about everywhere on the floor. But, yeah, Duke is here's the thing that's unique about Duke to kind of give you an idea of how the game has changed. Duke is the only team that has, in that caliber, like top 10, that has multiple freshmen playing significant minutes. Everybody else that's worth a damn in college basketball, you barely see freshmen on the floor. And obviously that includes Florida. It includes Auburn. It includes Alabama. Most of these teams that are really good, they're old. They've got 22, 23-year-olds playing the game, and true freshmen have a hard time getting on the floor. So that's what's changed significantly with college basketball. It's not about, to use an old Dick Vitaleism, diaper dandies. It's about guys that have been there, done that know how to play the game, grown men going head-to-head against one another. Duke is the one exception to that. Between Flagg and Knipple, like they actually have freshmen that are leading the way, and we'll see how that plays come tournament time. I'd personally rather have the guys that are 22, 23 than 18, 19. But Cooper Flagg's an unbelievable talent and a difference maker. So that's what makes them. You take him off that floor, and I don't care about their size and their five-star kids. Duke is not. We're not having this conversation. But Cooper Flagg is a generational talent, and so that's why we are.
Yeah, Tony says, makes a kind of a good point here on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law, referring to Condon coming back. He'd be coming back to a bunch of new guards. Who knows what the synergy would be like?
Yeah, that's another great point. Yeah, Tony's always got great points. There's no doubt. I mean, Clayton's going to be gone, and Martin's going to be gone, and I guess Aberdeen will be back, right? I mean, it would be his show in a lot of ways from a guard standpoint. But, yeah, this is a really special unit. This is why, if you're a Florida fan, appreciate it, enjoy the ride, and you hope that you can capitalize, because Todd Golden's going to continue to recruit well, and Florida's going to be competitive in the portal. But what I see, just kind of a firsthand view, all these SEC programs now, with the exception of a couple, are spending a lot of money on talent acquisition, right? But you don't know how it's all going to gel. You can't predict that. This unit for Florida gels about as well as you could possibly ask. They all love playing with one another. The unselfishness of this group is transparent. The synergy that they have. Yeah, there's no guarantee you're going to see this again for 5 years. So it's a really, really special group, and there's no doubt it'll be broken up due to the draft and everything else. But enjoy it while you've got it, because a team like this that not only is talented but plays so well together doesn't come along very often.
I agree with that. Dan chimes in on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel. Duke is the tallest team in the NCAA, averaging 6'7.5" across the board.
Yeah.
Mike, today, how many SEC teams get in the tournament?
12.
Because I know a lot of the bubble teams, the last four in, all that nonsense, have been winning in the last couple of days.
It's going to be 12 or 13, Shane, depending on what happens in Nashville. It's going to be 12 or 13. There's a couple of teams that I feel like still need a win. Even the game that I have, the Georgia-Vandy game, Georgia right now is in pretty good shape. Now, if they lost at home to Vandy and lost in the first round of the SEC tournament, now you got to sweat it out. which is why Mike White is not getting too cozy about things. But I think a dozen is a very safe bet. And depending on what happens in Nashville, 13. Remember, the all-time record is 11, which is the Big East. So this historical year in the SEC is going to continue to be historic because you're going to see the most bids ever by a league in college basketball history.
Yeah, it's a good league, no question. Text on the Tatum Our text line from Kevin says, who does Mike think will be the sixth man of the year in the SEC?
Caleb Grill, Missouri.
Yeah. I think Thomas Houck probably be coming second, third, somewhere around there.
Yeah. I mean, look, I love Thomas Houck. I love Thomas Houck. He'll be in the discussion. I think Caleb Grill, because honestly, Missouri's a really good team. As we witnessed, I called the game in Gainesville where they pulled off the upset. But without Caleb Grill and his scoring and his shooting, I don't think Missouri's in the same conversation as what they are now. He's been nothing short of fantastic. His story is great. Was injured almost the entire season last year. A lot of people wondered if he would just quit basketball. He's a young man who wants to get into coaching. So if I were to take a stab at it, I would guess Caleb Grill gets the award.
Where'd he come from?
Wichita, Kansas. Father's a high school coach. He started his career at Iowa State. He transferred to Missouri. A lot of injuries during his time there. And this year was like, okay, is he going to do anything? I don't know. He's always been a good shooter, but then the question was he athletic enough? And what people sell him short on, he's an athlete now. Like, he can get a shot off against anybody. I judge shooters on a couple things. Number one, form, and obviously efficiency. But some guys are just good spot-up shooters. And let's be honest, coming off the bus, people eye test think, oh, he's just a spot-up shooter. No, he's got hops, he's got quicks. Like, he can get a shot off against just about anybody in this league. And he's not a liability defensively either. He's a good all-around player that just happens to be the best three-point shooter in the conference, if not the country.
Yeah. Ted's question on Facebook Live brought to you by Mellon. Do you think after this year, Golden will be able to recruit elite high schoolers?
Yes. Florida basketball's back. It's cool again to play basketball in Gainesville. The Rowdy Reptiles are back. The handful of games I had there this year, the crowds were incredible. Whether it was Tuesday night at 9 o'clock or Saturday at 4 in the afternoon, the buzz around the program is back. Now, recruiting has changed since the Billy Donovan era. It's just different. And again, I would tell you that I'd rather have a team that's got a couple of star freshmen, but mainly based on veterans and portal guys. So that's the other thing. Todd will recruit well, but they'll also be very active in the portal. And their evaluation of guys in the portal, I don't know if there's anybody doing a better job. They haven't missed on many. They have not missed on many. And again, as I mentioned, a lot of these kids were not just coveted by everybody in the country, just like the freshmen. Houck and Condon, they were not coveted by everybody in the country. Walter Clayton was coveted by some, for sure, but not everybody was knocking down his door. They looked at him as an undersized two-guard, and football might be his first love. But that coaching staff, it's not just Todd, it's his coaching staff. He's got some really, really good assistant coaches. Their evaluation in putting this roster together has been nothing short of spectacular.
Yeah. Text on the Titan MR text line from James. He says, Mike, do you think any of the Blue Bloods, if they make coaching changes, will come after Todd Golden?
Oh, I think you can expect some of that. Indiana's going to probably start going after Bruce Pearl, who won a Division II national championship in Indiana. Everybody's been going after Nate Oates the last few years, and Todd Golden, with his age and now his recent track record, they'll be pro. But here's the thing: like, these SEC schools now, you're not going to lose a Todd Golden. Ole Miss is not going to lose a Coach Beard based on money. Now, they might want to say, like, I'd rather be at a blue blood where I think it's going to be easier to win. Maybe, but I don't think you're going to lose on the money. And so whatever Todd Golden is offered, I'm pretty confident Florida will be able to match that and then some. And then the question becomes, like, how happy are you in Gainesville? And one thing that's been proven over several years, Florida is one of the few that has more than enough to be good in football and basketball. It's not one of these either or. Oh, it's just a football school. No, Florida's been a basketball school as well for quite some time. Just look at the banners hanging up in the O-Dome. So I don't think there's any package that's going to come after Todd, who's really a West Coast guy. You know, it's not like we're talking about UCLA or something. So what's gonna make him motivated to leave for Bloomington, Indiana, or some of these other jobs? I don't see it. I think he stays.
Yeah, I was like, bring up Bruce Pearl. I mean, he's done a phenomenal job building programs at Tennessee and then moving to Auburn. And what he's done at Auburn it's almost as crazy good. Now he's never won a national title, but what Billy Donovan did for Gator basketball, I didn't think would ever happen. But I mean, in today's world, would you take the Indiana job and leave Auburn? I don't know if I would. I mean, I don't give a damn what Indiana did in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s under Bob. I mean, that's been so long ago. Right. Nobody cares.
Right. Yeah. The answer for me would be no. I would have no interest. What Bruce has proven at Auburn, what Billy Donovan proved in Gainesville, perhaps what Coach Beaird will prove in Oxford, is that you don't have to be at a blue blood to have a winning program and to build something special. So I don't think Bruce is leaving. If you really want to know the truth, I think if Bruce would be tempted for any job in America, it'd be Tennessee. When he talks about Tennessee, he's still just, that was a really special place for him. And they were doing special things before he got let go. So I think that's one of those where he's like, man, I really love this place. And you look at that arena and there's 18,000 fans, which, you know, Auburn's arena only seats 9. But no, I don't think Bruce has any desire to go to the Hoosier State when he's got the number 1 team in the country at Auburn and a great home court advantage, and game day was there and all these other things. And again, Auburn, they're not going to lose their coach to money either. The SEC is not going to lose their basketball coaches because the team knocking on the door is just going to offer more money, and they'll be like, well, we can't afford to keep them then. Goodbye. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. My good stuff, as always, let everybody know how they can listen to your podcast.
Yeah, college football fans. Weekly. Sure. JC and Morgan, we had Tony Barnhart on last week, Mr. College Football. This week we've got Dan Wetzel on talking about the craziness that seems to be cooling down in the ACC with Florida State and Clemson. Those lawsuits are just about done. And Dan and Ross Dellinger, those guys at Yahoo, they've been all over that story. So we'll talk about some of the bigger issues going on. That will be tomorrow. JC and Morgan's available free everywhere. Speaking of free, I do want to mention, you see that banner on the screen all the time when Shane is talking MGA Wealth. Sean is the guy. This could be like a phone call that can help your family's financial future for a long time. I won't try to make you memorize a phone number. Just go to the website, mgawealth.com. Sean is a lifelong Floridian and has helped so many people with their financial portfolio. mgawealth.com. Call Sean today and tell him Mike sent you.
Mike, appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you next week, bud.
Great stuff, Shane. Appreciate it. Take care.
Yep. Mike Morgan.